Good morning and welcome to the August 19th meeting of the Burbank-Pasadena-Glendale Airport Authority. Would you all roll call, please?
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Garpetian.
Here.
Commissioner Tornick.
Here.
Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Commissioner Devine.
Here.
Commissioner Madison.
Here.
Commissioner Wiggins.
Here.
Commissioner Selvage.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you all rise so we can pledge allegiance to the flag? Face the flag, put your hand over your heart, and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get into the approval of the agenda, Mr. Miller.
Yes, Mr. President, on our closed session agenda, we have a couple of items that we have called attorneys in to meet with the commission. They are here and waiting to do that. May I suggest that right after public comment, that we go into closed session, take it out of order on the agenda, come back from closed session, and then go into to the full agenda of the commission.
I have no problem. Is there any, do we need a vote on that, or is that? Okay. Okay, it's approved. Thank you. Okay. Public comment?
We have two non-agenda item speakers, and we have several on agenda item 6B and 7A.
Okay.
Do you want me to call them?
Yeah, I think so. No?
Non-agenda item.
Non-agenda items, yeah.
Kimberly Turner, Studio City.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We wanted to speak a little bit about operations. Your indiscriminate increase in operations and continued move to larger jets flies in the face of your claims that noise is the #1 issue facing the airport. On August 16th, Dan Fager, the former Burbank Airport Executive Director, wrote and submitted to the Commissioner the following letter, which, in the interest of time, we will only read portions of. How much time do we have?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. This is addressed to President Adams. Nero fiddles while Rome burns. The Operations Committee is scheduled to deliberate today on a staff recommendation to award a contract in the amount of $870,000 to any one collective for the purpose of continuing to expand service at and increase passenger demand for the airport. Since 2016, passenger demand has increased nearly 40%, and air carrier operations have increased about 30%. The projected annual passenger count for 2019 will be nearly 15% higher than the forecast 4.9 million annual passengers in the year 2025, upon which the 2016 replacement terminal EIR was based. Enough is enough. This aggressive and dramatic expansion in service at the airport has been accompanied by a dramatic increase in noise impacts and noise complaints from residents living in the Santa Monica Mountains. It is unforgivable that the Airport Authority continues to press forward with expanding air service while it steadfastly fails to take any concrete actions to mitigate these noise impacts. The authority can and should reject this staff recommendation and should place a moratorium on further air service development until a mitigation of these noise impacts has been realized. This money could be better spent trying to mitigate these noise impacts. Here are some better uses of the money. The authority could seek to provide incentives to the airlines to begin the runway 15 departure turn to the west before crossing the 101 freeway. The authority could engage a consulting team to work with the community to develop alternate RNAV departures that would keep aircraft north of the 101 freeway.
You have 1 minute.
The argument that the authority needs to keep expanding air service in order to pay for the $1.2 billion estimated cost of replacement terminal program is hollow. The authority should scale back the proposed project. How about the novel idea of reducing the scope of the project to fit within the authority's ability to pay for the project, assuming a passenger demand and aircraft operations that were studied in the EIR? Here are some ideas you can consider that would significantly reduce the cost of the replacement project terminal. Only build a 300,000 square foot terminal building. Defer construction of the 600 space employee parking structure. Co-mingle employees and public in the 3,180 space parking structure to be constructed adjacent to the terminal building. Construct.
Thank you.
Construct a low-cost, 50,000 square foot open space hangar-like pre-engineered metal building in the space where the employee parking structure would have been constructed. Initially, use this building for housing the replacement terminal design team and construction team. As the design process finishes, begin moving authority personnel from the existing terminal into this building. At the opening of the replacement terminal, move the balance of the authority staff into this building. Revisit the authority decision to use a progressive design-build method of delivery for the project. This method of delivery selects a design-build contractor without any price-based competition, which is a recipe for having the highest possible cost for a replacement terminal building. In any case, unless the authority, the FAA, and the airlines are all committed to acting quickly to resolve this noise controversy, the construction of a replacement terminal building will likely be delayed for years, making the continued expansion of air service a moot issue.
Thank you.
And that was from Dan Fager, just to be clear. And all of you have that. We've passed them out. All of you have that letter. You were all emailed that letter as well. So,
Thank you.
except for President Adams, apparently your email is bouncing back saying that your mailbox is full, so you may want to correct that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anybody else?
The other two are for 7A and 6B. Do
Okay.
you want me to go ahead?
Yeah? No?
Take those one. Take those up. Take those.
I'm sorry.
We'll take those up when we get to.
Yeah, we'll pick them up later. Frank, are we okay?
Turn to closed session.
Go
Closed
into-
Adjourn to closed
Yeah, we go into closed session? All in favor? We're gonna do it anyway.
Okay.
Complete. There's nothing to report. So now we go back to the agenda. Where were we, Mr. Frank?
We had just finished non-agenda public comments, so that would take us to the consent calendar.
What did you say?
Consent.
Yeah, okay. Into the consent calendar. Item B? Item 1, Operations and Development Committee. Any comment?
I would move the consent calendar, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, all say.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Finance and Administration Committee?
No. We're done.
Oh, we're down to, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Items for commission approval. Award of the hangar lease, hangar 38.
Staff will be presenting a proposed award of aviation hangar lease for hangar 38. Mr. Kim will be making the presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Commissioners. Staff comes to you today to present an award of Aviation Hangar Lease 38 to Avalon Capital Group. Next slide. Avalon is a privately held investment company with diverse assets, including public, private investments in real estate, technology, healthcare, finance, and entertainment. The aircraft to be stored is owned by Avalon for its business use. Avalon is currently a tenant at Van Nuys Airport, would like to relocate to Hollywood Burbank Airport. The current fleet consists of a Global XRS aircraft. Effective April 1, they will be upgrading their aircraft to a Global 7500 aircraft. It's a little bit bigger than a Gulfstream 650. If approved, Avalon will relocate its base of operations to Hangar 38. The proposed lease is for a term of 3 years and a 3-year extension, which will include tenant improvement allowance of roughly $167,000. The form of the credit will be approved by the tenant improvements to the facility. Avalon proposes to undertake the tenant improvement construction during the first 3 months of the lease. The aircraft will remain at Van Nuys during the improvements while they're completed. During the construction, rent will not be assessed. However, rent will become effective December 1st, 2019, regardless of whether the tenant improvements are completed or not. Based on the amount of the space to be utilized by the Global XRS aircraft, Avalon will remit from December 2019 to March 2020, a little over $23,000 a month. Upon delivery of the Global 7500, that amount will go up to a little over $26,000 a month. Key components of the lease: Hangar 38. Next slide. Hangar 38. It will commence September 1 through October 31st with a 3-year extension. The effective date, December 1st, the amount will be a little over $23,000 a month. Effective April 1, it will go up to a little over $26,000 a month. It will also be the adjustments 3% a year or a grade of 120% of CPI. Rent credit will be approximately $167,000. Tenant is responsible for all the maintenance, utilities, insurance, and taxes. If the improvements are completed within the first 3 months, as planned, with the application of the full rental credit, the rental revenue will be de minimis. For each succeeding year thereafter, the amount will be annually roughly $317,000. At the July 15th meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee, the committee voted unanimously 3-0 to recommend the commission approve the proposed aviation hangar lease with Avalon for Hangar 38 and authorize the president to execute the same. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments?
Just, what is the, what's their operation like? I mean, when do they fly?
They're usually going to probably fly, what I was told, roughly maybe 8 times a month. It's for one individual that flies just, his plane. It was getting too crowded in Van Nuys, and they just want to relocate it. So approximately about 8 times a month.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yes. They're coming from Van Nuys, and they were dissatisfied there or something like that, or they were getting squeezed out?
Yeah, it was a little bit crowded with the hangar, and the tenant himself is not liking that, so that's why they want to relocate over here.
And this hangar's we've been working on getting this leased up for a while. When we approach people to take this hangar, prior to landing this tenant, have we been in competition with hangar space over at Van Nuys? Have people that we approach been thinking, well, wait a minute, I could go to Van Nuys for this deal?
No, but what we've done is, we're not in direct competition with them, but what we have found is a lot of the tenants from Van Nuys are wanting to relocate over. And what our staff, what my group did, is took a different approach to leasing out these hangars. A lot of them don't want the full hangar, so they kind of want parcel, and that's what we're doing here, which we're finding a lot more interest in doing that. So a lot of them will want that just because they don't have the full commitment. And what you're seeing from Van Nuys, a lot of Van Nuys tenants are liking that because now they can come on over here. less crowded, and they can not take the whole hangar, but they can take a portion of it. And so that's kind of been their approach, and that's kind of where our direction's been.
Okay, thank you.
Sir,
This is a complicated question, I know, but do we have the ability to address flight paths in a lease arrangement like this? Why not? If not, why not? For general aviation, I can
For general
understand.
aviation, they fall under the same rules as commercial carriers. They're under the governance of the FAA. I think there are things that we'll be reviewing later with the commission, maybe some steps, but as far as telling them how to fly the plane, that's something we cannot do.
Could we not ask for some sort of, best efforts in terms of
We
noise
encourage
reduction?
them to follow your noise rules and how we operate here and be respectful of the community, especially at night. And that's given to them separate from the lease. That's a discussion we have with every tenant. Even your current tenants that are GA, we remind them of our noise rules and how we operate and how we would like to operate here.
So I know Exhibit B is the noise abatement rules itself. I wonder if somebody could point us to where in the agreement it says that they should try to comply with that, and I apologize if I should have found that earlier. Really would just be where the reference to Exhibit B is in the
Try
body of the
John,
document.
the exhibits have all the,
I'm looking for where Exhibit B is related to.
kind of very fine. Those have actually the fines and the noise rules and everything.
Yeah. In the lease itself, where do we reference Exhibit B?
Page 13,
Yep.
4.3.3.
Okay, good. So it broadly requires the tenant to comply with noise abatement rules, including, which may be amended from time to
Right,
time,
correct.
including voluntary noise, voluntary or mandatory curfew. But shouldn't it also say including, without limitation, voluntary policies or rules, including mandatory curfew? I hate to limit it to the.
This went through your federal attorney as far as how far we could go, because this is the standard language we put not only in these leases, but in your commercial leases with your commercial carriers and others, so it mirrors standard language across for
No,
all
I
your
get that.
access.
I'm agreeing with you, but what this says now is that the tenant has to comply with a voluntary or mandatory curfew. All I'm asking is why we couldn't also say the tenant should comply with any voluntary or mandatory noise abatement rules. Seems like if they can agree to the one, they could agree to the other.
We would have to review, I see what you're saying, Commissioner. I'm thinking about the number of leases we would have to amend across the board to make that standard language. So,
Well-
yeah, we could try doing that.
We have this one in front of us right
Plus,
now,
yeah,
though.
right.
So, do you have a motion yet?
what's the
Not yet,
So
there
I-
is no motion yet.
So I'd be prepared to move the staff recommendation provided an amendment is made to section 4.3, in particular 4.3.3, and any other provisions that would require amendment to include any voluntary or mandatory noise abatement rules that we operate.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think since we took the closed session item out of order, and we have 9 speakers on 7A, if the staff is ready to present 7A, maybe we should go to 7A next. I know there are people here and they took off their work and to be here, and just to be fair, if possible, we can go to 7A if staff is ready.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, the monthly report for the noise issues, we want to report that the FAA did host a meeting at its offices in El Segundo on July 30th to provide an informational briefing on the Hollywood Burbank Airport and Van Nuys Airport. The FAA has posted on its website, which is shown on the screen, all of the material from the meeting, including a list of invitees, their presentation, and an executive summary. And let me emphasize that this was a meeting that was called by the FAA and what was done without participation by either Van Nuys or Burbank. We are moving forward with the joint task force. LAWA staff and our staff have made preparations for the first meeting of the joint task force to be on Wednesday, August 28th, 6:30 p.m. at the Burbank Airport Marriott Hotel. Let me repeat that. Wednesday, August 28th, 6:30 p.m. at the Burbank Airport Marriott Hotel. We will also be placing this notice on our website so that people are aware of the meeting and that they have an opportunity to attend. As we previously advised, the following participants will be included on the task force: a representative from Senator Dianne Feinstein, a representative for Senator Kamala Harris, representatives for Congressman Sherman, Schiff, Cardenas. We will have representation from LA Councilman Krikorian, LA Councilman Rios, LA Councilman Koretz, and LA Councilwoman Martinez. At its July meeting, the Burbank City Council appointed Mayor Emily Gabel-Letty and Vice Mayor Sharon Springer to serve on the task force. Mayor Ara Najarian from Glendale will be on the task force, and Commissioner and Mayor of Pasadena Terry Tornick will be on the task force. The makeup of this task force was done specifically to ensure representation for all communities in the LA Basin, because as we all know, we are not eliminating noise. We are trying to determine how best to mitigate noise impacts in the region. And it was very important and also very important to the FAA that we have this type of representation based upon the models that they have used in other locations around the state. The FAA has committed to attend the task force meetings as a technical advisor. Ultimately, whatever comes out of this task force with recommendations will be going forward to the FAA. Their participation is critical as we move through this to allow us to move as quickly as we can, not only for the number of meetings that we feel that we have to have, but by having the FAA participate, we are hoping it can shorten their review process for their determination what to implement and what not to implement as far as these recommendations. The firm of HMMH, which is a well-known consulting firm in the aviation industry, has been selected to facilitate the meetings. All of these meetings will be facilitated by HMMH. Their noise person, who will be the facilitator, will also be able to review recommendations as they come forward and make comment to the task force as it does its business agenda. The person that will be facilitating also, we have asked him to review one more time the report that was done by Langerman Brown as a starting point as we move forward. The first meeting on the 28th, we anticipate this to be an organizational meeting. It'll be the first meeting of the task force, so it will allow the members to meet with one another and then to identify how they will be moving forward. Issues such as how far or how quickly the meetings can be done. If there are requests for information to come back, obviously that will determine what that schedule may be. The Hollywood Burbank Airport and the Los Angeles World Airports will have staff also at those meetings in an effort to provide any input that may be requested of those airports. As we move into this next step with the task force, there have been some suggestions about what the airport can do immediately, such as shortening the runway. That is not under the purview of this commission. It is not under the purview of any airport to arbitrarily shorten a runway. The task force will be vetting through a lot of information. The FAA will be providing a lot of technical expertise, but we will be identifying what can be done and what can't be done. But with that said, it is important that the Burbank Airport, Hollywood Burbank Airport, at the very least in the interim, as this task force is beginning to meet, to identify what we may be able to do temporarily as far as actions dealing with noise. We will be coming back to the commission with that. We will be having internal meetings, and we will be coming back to the commission at your next meeting. There may be some things that we can do, at least on a temporary basis, as we move through with the task force, but at this time, I would not venture to say exactly what could be done or could not be done. I think it's better to do a full analysis of that before coming or making any comments to the commission. We also will be using our website to identify really what can the airport do. And we have indicated in the past, that there are some restrictions, but this airport commission has written letters to the FAA talking about the turn of aircraft as they go south from Hollywood Burbank. This commission also adopted a resolution that was also signed by the cities of Glendale and Pasadena about the departure of aircraft, how they might be staggered, whether or not, or how quickly they may gain altitude. Again, these are recommendations that go to the FAA, something that is outside the responsibility or the authority of this commission. I strongly believe that as we deal with noise in the LA area, the task force, with the participation of the FAA, ultimately is the way to determine how we move forward in dealing with noise issues.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I want to make sure that everyone knows that August 28th meeting is open to the public, and there will be comments taken and given at that meeting. So that's again at 6:30 at the Marriott. The second, I'd like to have some clarification for this commission, and I think for those that are here representing Quiet Skies, et cetera. I've been getting a lot of emails about Mr. Fager's suggestions and, how we can remedy this situation that we're in right now, this noise problem. Can you, this morning, right now, clarify which of his suggestions we can do and we cannot do? Are there any that we can do, or are they all on the cannot do list?
We cannot shorten the runway. We cannot go to the FAA and say we are shortening our runway by 215 feet. There's simply no reason that the FAA would agree to that. And in fact, I believe that was tried once before. And I think it was Mr. Fager that made that recommendation to the FAA. We cannot pay the airline pilots or pay the airlines to turn earlier. That is under the control of the pilot of the aircraft, but also with the FAA air traffic control system. So the issues about the replacement terminal would have no bearing on how the noise impacts are currently existing at this airport. Whether or not we build an employee parking structure, whether or not we build a Quonset hut, none of that is going to do anything dealing with the noise. We cannot tell the airlines not to fly in here. We cannot control the number of flights that the airline wants to bring into this airport. And so, while Mr. Fager has come up with a lot of suggestions, we will be providing that information to the task force. But there's a lot of things in there that he simply knows we cannot do, such as, again, shortening the runway. But we will give it due consideration and present that to the task force, and again with the FAA as a technical advisor.
Okay, and those questions will be answered on the website as well.
The meetings of the task force will be transcribed and those transcriptions will be placed on our website following each meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much. Gentlemen? Pardon? Back to public comment? Thank you.
For item 6B or 7A?
7A.
7A. We have Kimberly Turner and Sue Ellen Wagner. Three minutes.
Okay. So my first question was, what have you done since our last meeting? We heard a little bit. We know that you have not met with us. We have asked for a meeting with staff back in June and repeated the request several times, but have been ignored and in fact rebuffed. It is clear that the staff does not want to hear from us. Nevertheless, there should be action addressing the airport's #1 problem. Have you pressed the FAA to make much-needed changes after 2.5 years under the Southern Path? Have you challenged the FAA's claim that they don't know why the path moved? As we have been told hundreds of times over the years, the sky is FAA's jurisdiction, so how is it possible that they do not know? Have you asked ATC or TRACON to appear before the board in a public meeting to explain what is happening in the tower and with TRACON that is resulting in the bombardment of our communities, constant bombardment, 24 hours a day? Have you worked with the airlines? They weren't mentioned as being attending the task force. To determine what their contribution has been to the wholesale southward movement of jets over Studio City and Sherman Oaks, including Santa Monica Mountains. Have you asked representatives to appear before the board in a public meeting and explain this to the community? Where is the transparency? Where is the communication? Where is the action, the urgency? Where is the community outreach that FAA and Burbank Airport are required to perform? Regarding Van Nuys, the Van Nuys proposed procedure that was unveiled to the public on August 6th is unacceptable to the community and must be stopped. It is nearly the same procedure in reverse that the City of LA and thousands of people opposed so forcefully 1 year ago, and is the subject of the current EA. This is a further attempt by the FAA to legitimize the 2017 path that has led to inexorable suffering.
You have 1 minute.
It is the same path that Burbank knew was about to be inflicted on our community years ago, but stood aside and failed to act when they could have acted. We need you to tell FAA that this further assault and insult is unacceptable. Have you commented to oppose moving forward? Both airports must be dealt with simultaneously, as our congressional delegation has strongly recommended.
Hello. I wanted
next
to
speaker.
address a couple of things.
Pardon?
One,
Who's the next speaker?
Yeah, this is the next speaker.
yeah, I'm the next speaker.
Kim Turner.
Thank you.
Kimberly Turner, Studio City for Quiet Skies.
Thanks.
So you addressed Mr. Fager's solutions. He has come up with some interim solutions that you, the airport authority, could do now. You've addressed some that you can't do, but you didn't address ones that we think that you can do. One of which would be a formal request from the authority to its tenant airlines asking them to voluntarily increase their rate of climb to at least 460 nautical miles, and to ask the FAA to expedite the release of radar vectors to aircraft on the historic climbing right turn to 210 degrees, all in an effort to achieve a turn to the west at or before reaching the Ventura Freeway. Get up and out of the valley, basically. Ask the FAA's National Data Center to issue NOTAMs, Notice to Airmen, to make these changes immediately. NOTAMs were issued very early in the process for the Van Nuys proposed fix. We have already noticed changes with more jets traversing Studio City. Mr. Fager has also come up with a proposed permanent solution instead of the FAA's current proposed procedures, SLAP 2 and AROS 3, that have been rejected by the community and community leaders and are subject of massive public controversy. We would like you to endorse Mr. Fager's permanent plan. We request that the airport submit a more specific late comment to the FAA regarding the proposed procedures and submit Mr. Fager's plan as a viable solution to be considered during the EA. He emailed his plan to Commissioner Adams, and we have attached the solutions to the packet that we gave you for your convenience. The task force, this has become, it seems to us, another secret meeting that
You
we
have 1
just
minute.
learn about during, these meetings. We are not, none of the community leaders are included. Where is Mayor Garcetti? Is there someone included from his team? How about the airlines? Are they included? We would like former director of the Burbank Airport, Dan Fager, to sit on this task force. He has offered to do that, to be a participant. He does not have a horse in this race. He has specific knowledge of the issue and would be an asset to the task force. He is willing to participate, so we don't see any barriers to his inclusion. This task force was formed because there is a substantial community problem. Yet, as I stated, no community members are allowed to sit on this committee. To promote transparency, an agenda must be published and available online well in advance of the meeting, and all materials must be made public.
Thank
The
you.
meeting should be live streamed. I just have a couple. She yielded her time to me. The meeting should be live streamed and recorded with the recording made public. Our rights must not be violated, and community members must not be threatened when they come to these meetings, as they have at other meetings. Also, just so you know, August 28th is right before Labor Day. It's not the greatest time for, a lot of people are out of town.
Thank you very much for your time.
And are there going to be lobbyists at this task force? They were included at the FAA's July 30th meeting. The policies are in wholehearted opposition to relief for any community under a focused jet path. So it would be, we don't want the lobbyists included, obviously.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
very
time.
much.
Next, we have Heidi McKay and then David Kimball.
Yes, after more than 18 months of activism, we've had no relief, obviously. As Councilman Krikorian stated, please get up and out of the valley. We are tired. We are tired of you claiming that you're doing everything in your power when it seems you're clearly not. We are tired of you talking out of both sides of your mouth, claiming that this is a #1 problem that the airport is facing on one side, while touting an increase in operations on the other side. We are tired of your cities lining their pockets while Studio City and Sherman Oaks are destroyed by their greed. We are tired of living at the end of a runway. We are tired of losing our quality of life, our sleep, our tranquility, our livelihoods, our sanity, and our health. We are tired, yet we are not going away. We will not back down. All we ask is that our lives be restored. Please act in a meaningful way and with moral integrity that we know you can. Mr. Fager, Emmanuel Respect, has provided some solutions clearly that Kim stated that can be implemented now. Please read them and act upon them. We need Burbank to stand up and fight for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Kimball and then Mary Kate Harris.
Hello, I'm David Kimball. But I feel more like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day because, nothing changes. We come in the same old thing. But anyway, I'd like to step back in time to the June 3rd meeting where you were all so sympathetic, concerned, and caring about your dear neighbors in Studio City, Toluca Lake, Sherman Oaks. You actually had this audience applauding you. Applauding what you were saying. You convinced me, and I think many others, that you were hearing us, that you were on our side, that you would do everything possible within your power to help us. So truly a masterful performance. I guess you don't call yourselves the Hollywood Burbank Airport for nothing, so bravo, great performance. Anyway, here are some of the things you actually said at that meeting. Frank Miller, we need to have a lot of hard discussions with the FAA. Mr. Miller, I'm eager to hear about those hard discussions, and I do hope you weren't too hard on the FAA, because after all, you wouldn't want to antagonize the preeminent funder of your airport. Now, would you, Mr. Madison? Barton Garpatian. Roundtables are good, also known as task force now. Roundtables are good, but they are going to take forever. Take forever. You said that, and you're right. This is an emergency. We understand that. I think we need to have a serious conversation with our airlines to see what it is that they can do today.
You have 1 minute.
Mr. Garpatian, how are those emergency conversations coming along? Paula Devine. I have talked to pilots, and they have told me that it's the airlines and the pilots who decide how high they fly, how they take off, the altitude, etc. So it is very important that they be at these meetings. Ms. Devine, please tell us about your meetings with the airlines. Zarin Sinyanyan, we will do everything possible within our power to resolve this issue. He's not here anymore. But Don Brown also said, we will do everything in our power to help you. Mr. Brown, how have you and your colleagues, what have you done to help us? Also, Mr. Brown, on June 3rd, you stated, I've been here since 1943, and I can tell you this, Burbank is quieter now than it's ever been. But just 6 weeks later, on July 15th, you stated, it's not quiet at my house. I just told you, I get the noise now more than ever.
Thank you.
So apparently, unless you're flat out lying, somebody changed the flight paths after June 3rd and redirect them over your house. I feel for you. That's a tough deal. So do you think it was the FAA or the airlines or the pilots or the airport who did that? Anybody know? I don't. But whatever the cause,
Thank you very much,
you
sir.
have my sincere sympathies, and I'm going to ask the president to look into it for you.
Thank you very much.
Mary Kate Harris, and then Stacy Slichta.
Here we are again. And there have been no changes. Oh, wait. Now, instead of getting 2 planes in 1 minute, we get 3 planes in 1 minute. This past Thursday, late in the evening, 3 planes in 1 minute, and when we looked it up on WebTrack, you could see nose to tail, 3 planes going right over my house. So I guess there have been some changes. Mr. Miller, you spent nearly all of your speaking time basically cutting off Dan Fager and his suggestions at the knees. I see you nodding. Yes, I did that. He offered some realistic solutions to help us while we continue to suffer with these noise issues. You flatly stated that shortening a runway cannot be done. You didn't say why, you just said no. Is there a why in there? It cannot be done because? You're not going to answer me. There must not be a why. It's just a flat out no. Again, Heidi, you said you're tired. Oh, yes, ma'am. We're all tired. None of us have slept well in well over a year. Many thanks to this commission, all of you, as you sit here smugly looking at me or not looking at me. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The obfuscation that the FAA, yes, that's a word, sir.
You have 1 minute.
That the FAA and this commission practice. A task force? That's simply a way to push things further away. Give it another 6 months, maybe they'll move. Maybe they'll stop complaining and get used to it. No, we won't get used to it. And as Heidi said, we're not going away. We may be sleepless, but we are really angry. And it's because of you. So once again, thank you so much for the huge, horrific changes you have made in our daily lives, for destroying our communities. What a nice gesture from a commission.
Stacy Slichta, and then Leo London.
Hi. Did you guys have a good summer break? Hope you did. I'm kind of going to touch on a few things, but the first thing that I wanted to touch on was the agenda that you guys had sent out. And I know that Mr. Miller had made a few points earlier about what the task force and what has been done, but on your agenda that was posted to the public about noise, it basically said that there was no staff report. Now, from a public standpoint, many people have spoken, as well as Mr. Miller, that this is a very important issue, number one priority, that this is to be done. You can't imagine the disgust and the disappointment as communities have when they see on your agenda that there's no report from your staff for the noise issue on your agenda. There's nothing. So if you're not going to do anything, if the staff isn't going to be doing any work, just let us know. I think that's nice to do to people. Also, the fact that you didn't do any work on the noise issue according to your agenda, and you also have this great advertising campaign that you're doing, that you're allocating $1 million for to get more people into your airport. Now, you look at that. You want more people in your airport, but you're not taking care of the communities that you're hurting. You're giving $1 million to an ad campaign to get people through your airport and get them at your airport, but you're not putting a dime into helping the communities with their noise issues. Steve, I'm perplexed too by that. I don't understand how somebody could do that. Terry, same thing. I'm confused. What kind of message are you sending to our communities? Besides that, things are getting pushed to the side. Now there's a task force. It's over here. You guys you're taking zero accountability. Mr. Kimball pointed things out very poignantly to you of things that you said and you didn't follow through on. If you were doing something, if you were in business with somebody and they weren't following through on something, you better believe you would be on task with them and saying, what are you doing? And each of your communities have financial investments in this community. Your municipal bonds get interest from this airport on a regular basis. So not only are you invested in Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena, but you're also interested in the money. And many of you have also mentioned that the FAA is the major funder for this airport. So you want to keep them happy too. So you're just pushing the buck. You're passing the buck. This is an election year for many of you. Many of you. And don't think that this isn't going to hurt you with your constituents, with your flip-flopping and your lies and your inability to follow through on basic things for a community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Leo and Landon. And then Karen Ahern.
My name's Leo. And my name is Liam. So, you've seen about animals and pollution. Pretend there's a frog in the wild. You see a frog. The airplane goes over it. And then it pollutes it. And then it does it again. And then it eventually dies. So we don't want any of the animals to die. So the airplanes pollute the world. So the Upper LA works and helps for our community to help stop the airplanes from going over our head, because I'm a deep sleeper, but every night I see an airplane going over my head, and it takes a long time for me to fall asleep, and I get kicky. And so my friend Liam, the airplanes go over to his house, and he can't sleep, and so all my friends argue about all the airplanes going over our house and stuff. I would rather be playing outside than talking about the airplanes right now. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Karen Ahern, and then He Lee.
I don't think I've ever had to move a microphone up in my entire life. I had planned to come and speak with you today about the historic failure ratio of roundtables and task force. In case you're curious, I did a quick Google search after you announced the task force last time, and the failure ratio is 22-1. But instead today, I'd like to use my time to address what I hope is just a misconception. It's your item 9E in your agenda for today. It says conference call with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, one potential case. Commissioners, I assure you there are thousands of potential cases out there. I'm sure you're aware, but I want the thousands of people represented by Uproar, Studio City for Quiet Skies, and the hundreds of people at work watching to know about the California Supreme Court case, Baker versus Burbank-Glendale-Pasadena Airport Authority, 1985, 39 Cal 3rd 866. This case says an affected property owner or residents, for those of you leasing, that's you, may elect to treat commercial airport noise and vibrations as a continuing rather than permanent nuisance. Commissioners, we are making notes about everything and have been for more than 2 years. Every time we have to stay in a hotel because it's unsafe to live at home, we write it down, we save receipts. Every time people cannot film with the studios as they always have, they are writing down their lost revenue. They are writing down and getting medical records of their asthma, anxiety, and infertility, in my case, caused directly by your airplanes. They are writing down their property damage. These are the garage doors we have to perpetually recalibrate because of vibrations.
You have 1 minute.
Our air filters, our pool filters, the list goes on and on. Commissioners, to date, you have done nothing to mitigate your liability that grows with every passing day. Not one thing. This bill will come due, and I assure you it will be a big bill. It will likely cause you to have to give up on your pretty new terminal. You have the Uproar solution. I encourage you with everything I have to get that solution to the FAA and to tell them to start designing today. We don't have time, and you do not have time to waste.
Thank you. He Lee.
Hi, I come to you as a mother and as a parent of a school where there's like thousands of students in a school, and I just am appalled to see so many airplanes that fly over them directly, and it's like every morning I love taking my children. I have 7 and a 5 and a 4-year-old. They're all going to the same school, and we walk together in the morning, and we like to talk about how your day is going to be, and there's airplanes flying over. It gets interrupted. Excuse me, what did you say? I can't hear you. Can you repeat that? well, I didn't say anything, and then so it goes. I have been asthma-free for 9 years, and it came back a year ago. And the doctor tells me I would need these inhalers, and I was just choking in everywhere. I had to get out of the building to, so that people don't notice that I have a cold or anything. I mean, it's just my personal stories. I don't know if any of you have a medical impact like me. Two of my boys, they told that they are like very close to asthma. They have just runny nose all the time. They are coughing everywhere, and they might need to be, eventually the doctor told me they would need to be an inhaler to prevent further lung complications. And we live directly under, I live in the studio city in the Silver Triangle, where there's a mountain there, and there's a vibrating noise, and the fanfare of these airplanes flying over, like all across, and there's like nice contrails crossing over to make up like a cloud that was never there. And please give me our home back as it was, our schools back to our children as it was, so that we had no problem before. We didn't have this problem.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So we just ask for clarity, transparency. This is not just an emotional plea. It's a statement. It's a family. You have families. And these are just so way too low, way too frequent. I'm just so thankful for every minute I get in my day that there's no airplanes. And then, shoo, shoo, and then I think that it will someday ever stop. I wonder if it will ever stop, and I will keep coming back to you, and I will tell you the same thing, that I want the peace and the clarity, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Back onto the calendar now, the agenda. Do we need Operations and Development Committee?
6B.
Pardon?
I think before we move on, though.
Month to month?
Excuse me. Before we move on, I mean, many statements were made there. We have corresponded twice with the FAA, once in June and once in July.
Thanks, I'm sorry.
And asked them to immediately alter the flight paths to provide mitigation.
Yes.
Okay, and the task force meeting is coming up.
August 28th, 6:30 p.m. At the Marriott Hotel across the street.
And that meeting and all meetings of that task force will be public.
They are public meetings, yes.
And we have also involved the airlines in these efforts.
We anticipate that with the FAA's presence that we may see some airlines at the meetings, but there's been no formal commitment on their part to me. But that is a possibility. But the FAA certainly has made the commitment, and the airlines have always said that if the FAA were not at a meeting, that they would not attend a meeting.
I wonder if it'd be appropriate to just formally request the airlines that operate here at our airport to attend.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one follow-up question. Can we force the airlines to attend these meetings?
No, we cannot.
So we have no authority over them to even be able to ask them or force them to attend those meetings?
We cannot force them to attend the meeting. We can request attendance, but we cannot require attendance.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Right, the agendas for the task force meetings will be posted online. Will they be on our website?
Yes, they will.
Okay, so the usual Brown Act requirement, three days ahead of time, they'll be up and
Yes.
posted. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Follow-up question on your report or your answers about Mr. Fager's comments or suggestions. Why can we not shorten the runway? Can you answer that question?
Mr. Fager was indicating that the authority had the ability on its own to shorten the runway. That is not something that we can do. The FAA is part of a process, and his recommendation take it on face value that this commission could vote today to shorten that runway is not correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Getting back to on item 6B, month-to-month lease.
Mr. President, Commissioners, staff comes to you today to present a month-to-month lease to United Maintenance Company. On July 15th, the authority awarded a janitorial service agreement to United Maintenance, which commences on September 1st, 2019. This lease is for the same office space leased to the previous DFS. Staff did not pursue preparing a month-to-month lease until a decision on the service provider was completed. With the change in the janitorial service provider, staff prepared the month-to-month lease and is bringing it directly to the commission for its consideration to support the transition from the previous DFS, whose lease will expire August 31st, to United Maintenance. The proposed lease is for 261 square feet of office space located on the second floor of Building 9. Key details is the month-to-month. Commencement will start September 1. The monthly amount is a little over $500 a month, 261 square feet, and either party has the right to terminate with 30-day notice. It is budget neutral. Staff seeks commission approval for a month-to-month office lease with United Maintenance and authorization for the authority president to execute the same. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Is this different in any respect from what we had before?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other?
I'll move the item.
It's been moved. Do I hear a second?
Just a question, if I could. Is there something about leases that require this to come to the full commission, or does the director have some limit of authority that's exceeded here?
Because it's tied into your services contract, they're actually together, and that's why this is actually a cleanup, because we couldn't bring it.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, then. All those in favor of aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving to C, change
We do
order.
we have 3 speakers on 6B. We have 6 public speakers for 6B.
We just moved the item.
On the lease?
On the lease?
On the
Yes.
lease.
We just moved the item.
Okay.
We did.
Maria Luisa Cordero.
Reopen the matter.
Pardon?
Reopen the
Reopen the
matter.
matter and hear the public comment.
Ada Camacho and Luis
We
Fuentes.
just voted on this, so you have to reopen the item.
Sorry.
So-
Is there clarity? So we were hoping to get up here before you all took action. So first and foremost, good morning. My name is Luis Fuentes, and I'm joined by members and also colleagues of SEIU USWW. We represent the janitorial service contracts, of which you all just approved the lease for United Maintenance. And so we've been before the commission before, and we do want to thank you all for your time. So the reason why we're here, we've been working with United Maintenance together to ensure that the hardworking men and women who clean this airport are not harmed by this bid. We have concluded that the only option to keep workers from paying the costs of the airport's proposed savings will be for the commission to authorize additional funds for this contract. An additional $380 is needed per worker for workers to retain and maintain their current health coverages with annual increases thereafter. At a time of economic growth, when the Burbank Airport is planning major expansions and renovations, we do not see the logic in making the airport's most vulnerable workers shoulder the burden of losing quality health coverages so the airport can accomplish savings on its cleaning contract. We are requesting the commission to take 2 steps today. Extend the current service contractor service agreement until such time as the cost issues can be resolved without harm to Burbank Airport's janitors. And 2, direct the procurement staff to meet with USWW and United Maintenance together to prepare a proposal for the commission to consider that will not cause the janitors to lose harm. As a point of clarification, the commission did approve the contract, but the commission did request that confirmation of the vote would be subject to the validity of the signed agreement between United Maintenance and SEIU's WW. So part of the issue is that we don't have a signed agreement as of yet, because there is an economic shortfall in the money that was allocated by United Maintenance when they bid for this contract that would cause these workers to lose their health and welfare benefits. So that's the reason why we are here before the committee. As before, we are trying to mitigate labor dispute here at the airport with the janitorial staff, and we respectfully ask for your support in making this happen. And we do appreciate the support previous in raising some of these issues, and I'll yield the rest of my time.
Okay, so USWW represents tens of thousands of janitors across California. These are the humble men and women who come in the day, throughout the day and at night, and they do the work that no one else wants to do. In lots of cases, our janitors are often considered to be as disposable as the trash they take out. We're calling on the Burbank Airport Commission to do better, to stand up for these workers. No one gets rich taking out trash and cleaning toilets at a small airport. These janitors here earn less than $14 an hour. Many of these janitors have been here for as long as 20, 25 years because it's one of the few service jobs in the city with good employer-paid health care, right? Turnover matters to passengers and to the airport. To everyone. Airport security is a big issue. No one wants to make the janitorial contract here a revolving door where new faces are appearing in secured areas of the airport every few weeks. It would be wrong for the Burbank Airport Commission to accomplish cost savings at the expense of the lowest paid and most vulnerable workers at the airport. We're calling on the Airport Commission to do the right thing and ensure that these hardworking janitors here at the airport can keep their health care that's so important to them. And here we have Maria Luisa Cordero, who's the last one to speak from the group.
Buenos días, mi nombre es María Luisa Cordero, tengo 15 años trabajando aquí. Yo vengo a que ustedes, la nueva compañía que entre, que nos den nuestros seguros médicos, lo necesitamos mucho, todos nuestros compañeros.
Señora, permiso.
So my name is Maria Cordero. I'm an employee here at Burbank Airport, and the reason why I'm here is because I need my health care, and I'm requesting and I'm asking for your support because all my colleagues also need the health care. We don't make that much money here.
Por favor, se lo suplico a todos los del comisionado, si todos ya me conocen, yo tengo 15 años aquí trabajando. Nosotros los empleados que trabajamos de limpieza ganamos muy poco para que nos quiten nuestros beneficios, nuestros médicos. Los necesitamos, por favor. Nosotros con el salario que nosotros tenemos no podemos pagar un médico. Entonces, por eso queremos que nosotros, las nuevas compañías que vengan y nos contraten, que nos den nuestros seguros médicos, por favor. Se lo suplico a todos los comisionados y todos los que contratan los contratistas a las nuevas compañías, que nos den siempre nuestros seguros médicos y nuestros beneficios, por favor. Gracias. Gracias por escucharme y gracias. Que pasen muy feliz día.
As I said before, I've been here working for 15 years, and we're just asking for you guys' support. We really need the airport commissioners to take a look. We want any contractors that you guys decide to give the contract to give us the health care. We don't make that much money here, and we cannot afford to pay for for health care outside. We're really under the minimum wage, and we're really asking and begging for all of you guys to take a look and really and we're asking for you. We're calling on your support. We and she said a lot of you guys know who I am. Here at the airport for 15 years, and so we're asking for you guys to please think about like the decisions that you guys are making, and then we're asking for all our coworkers' support as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just inquire, when we approved the services agreement, it was conditioned on an agreement being entered into?
We went back and checked, and it says execution of the janitorial service grant upon verification of attached principals agreement, which was the principal agreement that both parties presented to the commission on July 15th, and they both have signed it. Now, based on that, we went forward and completed the execution of the service contract because this document was signed and delivered to the airport authority.
Well, I think, do we have the minutes of that meeting before us?
Yes, we do.
Where is that?
It's in your packet. It was earlier.
Pardon?
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Sounds like we didn't, though.
Well, there's been a problem because our intentions, that I remember.
I agree.
We were gonna pay for it.
I agree.
It starts on page 11 in the agenda.
Actually, page 12 of your agenda package.
Page 11.
Well, we were told that they reached an agreement on the same morning, right?
They provided,
That was-
they provided us a copy of the agreement that was an executed principals agreement.
That's signed by both the union and
And the company, yes.
Okay.
I
So
don't
was
know
the
what
medical-
that is. Is that like a term sheet subject to
Basically,
further?
it was yes, it is a term sheet to which they agreed to move forward on.
Okay, but the agreement that we were talking about was the ultimate agreement, not a term sheet that needed to be renegotiated.
Just a point of order, if I may, Mr. Chair, we need to, this is not an agendized item, but it's obviously relevant, and I think the expectation of the commission was that there was an agreement. I think we need to report back, we need to circle back around on this issue to understand. We're not going to do collective bargaining here at this moment, but we need to have an understanding of what, if there's an outstanding issue that we weren't clear on, we need to have a report back on what the status of that is. And
we'll bring that back, in fact, and staff will follow up with both parties.
We're not in a position to act on that today. In terms of the action that we took or are taking on the lease, it's a month to month.
Yeah.
So I don't think that needs
Not
to
an
be
issue,
held
no.
up at this
But
point.
the larger issue is important, and it needs to come back to the commission. We understood that there was a little fanfare, that, because Steve was starting to drill down on that issue, and that we were given to understand that there was agreement. It appears that that was not a complete agreement, so we need to have a report back on
Yeah,
that.
one of the items that says that the workers will be economically whole is in the principal agreement.
All right, so we need to come back on that, and revisit this issue.
All right. Okay, where are we now?
Can that come back to our next meeting then?
Yeah, needs to.
We'll bring it back for
Thank
the
you.
September meeting.
Thanks, John.
We want to make sure that the
Pardon?
people out there understand what we're gonna do. If they understand we're gonna bring this thing back.
I'm sure we do.
Yeah.
So thank you all. And I do understand that I guess the only issue there is that the actual takeover of services by United Maintenance begins at the end, what's supposed to start at the beginning of September. And so the issue is, if we're not going to take this up till next month, or we had requested for there to be an extension of the current service contractor so we can work through these issues, and then we can revisit and make final approvals. Our concern is if the services
With all due
start.
respect, we're not in a position to visit that issue here today. It's not an agendized item. We've already approved and authorized it, but we can try to work to resolve this, but I don't think we should be, we are not in a position to void an action that the commission's already taken, but we certainly, you got the sense of the commission that
Yeah.
we're anxious to make sure this gets resolved.
Understood. And we wanted to make sure we flag the issue as we're moving forward, because there's still, a shortfall
An open
as
item.
noted.
Okay.
But thank you all for your support, and we look forward to working with staff.
Okay, thank you. All right. Back to the agenda.
I'll move the item 6B.
No, it's
It's already been. It's been
Okay,
Oh,
done.
took an action
Done.
before we did.
where are we now?
Rescind my-
6B?
6C.
6C, change order.
Yes, this is for medical services oversight that is required for a program that is being required by LA County Medical Health. Chief Lanahan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Linehan, Fire Chief. After the recommendation of the Operations and Development Committee this morning, staff seeks the approval of the Commission for a change order in the amount of $10,000 with Superior Life Support Incorporated, SLS, for medical director oversight services required to implement the Airport Fire Department's initiation of a Narcan and EpiPen program. These programs are mandated by the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services Emergency Medical Services Agency and are part of the scope of practice for an emergency medical technician, EMT. And this is effective July 1st, 2019. These two programs require medical direction oversight by a licensed physician. Some background, the two programs to be deployed by the Airport Fire Department personnel are Narcan nasal spray for the use and treatment of opioid overdose by blocking or reversing the effects of opioids, and epinephrine, EpiPen, injectors used to treat severe allergic reaction and/or asthma attacks. SLS currently is the Airport Fire Department service provider for the authority's automated external defibrillator and Stop the Bleed programs. The services from SLS include supplies, instruction, training, and oversight. These services under a 3-year purchase order is in its last year and due to expire May 20th of 2020. Current annual costs for these two programs is $16,866. The cost to add a licensed physician to provide medical direction oversight for the Narcan and EpiPen programs is $10,000, increasing the annual cost to $26,866.
I'm prepared to move the item. Chief, I just had one question. Is there a physician required to respond if we use Narcan or Epi?
No, he'll just provide oversight and do quality review all of any EMS runs. Really, the medical director is prepared to review all of our calls. It's just increases our professional standards along with the continuing education that we're getting from the UCLA pre-hospital care. So
We already have these tools available, right? The Narcan and EpiPens.
we have them, and we just needed to get the
Gotcha.
Commission's approval to have the medical direction oversight, which is mandated by Department of Health Services.
Yeah, I'm not on the committee, but I'd move the item.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We're on D, waste hauling.
Mr. Hardiman will be presenting this item. This item was presented to the Operations Committee earlier. Mr. Hardiman, if you can, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President and members of the Commission. Staff comes to you today with a recommendation from the Operations Committee to award a 3-year agreement with 2 one-year options in the monthly amount of $10,573 to American Reclamation Incorporated for waste hauling and recycling services. As you can see from the length of the staff report, this reaching a point where I could bring a recommendation to you did not follow the most conventional path. I feel that all of the information that you need is contained in the staff report, and I'm going to focus my attention and comments this morning really on our third and most recent solicitation for proposals. Following the successful protest, we did make a minor modification to the RFP document, which removed the requirement for bidders to actually name and for the authority to approve the waste hauling site that trash would be taken to. Rather, we emphasized and will be relying upon the indemnification provided by the service provider to the authority to be in compliance with all regulations. As you can see from the matrix on the fourth and final page of the staff report, we did have 4 firms provide proposals. 3 were deemed to be compatible and really those 2 came down to American Reclamation and Athens Environmental Services. which you could see both firms, the evaluation committee felt very comfortable that either firm could provide the services. The delta that swung the item clearly towards staff's recommendation to you was the pricing. And American Reclamation has once again provided a bid of $10,572 as opposed to Athens Environmental, which was at $17,436. So with that, it is staff's recommendation that a 3-year agreement be awarded to American Reclamation with 2 one-year option periods, price to be negotiated at that time.
Okay.
Do you have
Any
questions?
comment?
Yeah, are there any requirements here of this contract service that are peculiar to airports?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, are there any requirements of the service they're going to provide that are peculiar to an airport?
Other than the fact that they will need to work with us to get their personnel badged, that's the only unique thing to an airport, as some of the pickup places are located on airfield and will require an Air Operations Area badge or AOA badge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Move the item.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, sir. We're on, let's see, items for commission. We done the community noise concerns.
Yeah, we sure have. Item
Airline schedule.
Pardon?
Their
Item A?
schedule.
Items for commission discussion.
Yeah, 8A.
8A. I think it's airline
Okay.
schedule.
Go ahead, sir.
We have four items for commission information. If the commission wants to go through them, we can start off, if at your pleasure, with the update on the Art and Public Places program for the Regional Intermodal Transportation Center. Mr. Kimball?
Mr. President, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So I'm here today to update you on the Regional Intermodal Transportation Center, or RITC, Art and Public Places. So staff met with the City of Burbank representatives that handle the Art and Public Places program, reviewed and discussed the alternatives of the different art concepts for commission consideration. As our discussion with the City of Burbank representatives, it appeared that they implemented a lot of the bronze statues that fulfilled the public art requirement. City representatives provided input also on the scope for if we move down this path for a art consultant. Staff came up with 3 recommendation options for the art and public places. 1, the use of existing, next one, the existing artwork panels that we were previously working on, that we would move forward. Next. Option 2 are bronze statues. Next. And these are some different options from the City of Burbank art statues and bronzes that they had used. Next. This would be the location at the RITC. This is the transit center that we would be proposing to place the bronze statues. Next. And the third option is the floor design artwork. And that can be, next. There are a couple potential areas in the RITC that those could be implemented, and these are a couple areas right next to the customer service counter at the RITC, the rental car facility. Next. So recommendations, staff recommends the commission that the Art and Public Places requirement be met with a bronze statue and to implement that at the transit center at the RITC. Next. The next steps, if that is agreed upon, we would issue an RFP for the needed public art consultant, staff to manage the process for the public consultant, so we would use the public consultant as input, but they would not be driving it. We would issue the RFP for the artist, commission input on desired outcome based on the staff information and recommendation. staff to provide the artist and detailed descriptions. So we would provide the artist descriptions of where the artwork, what we would want. We would also look for you for guidance too. And we would also award the contract to the artist. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have a budget for this artwork?
You have a requirement for art in public places based on the investment in your facility, and based on that calculation, there is a requirement of $377,198 that must be fulfilled to meet the requirements of the City of Burbank Art in Public Places program.
Okay, yes,
So
sir.
I'm sorry, Paul, please.
So we have to use the $377,000 for art, public art?
Yes.
Okay. Right?
So it's one statue?
No, at this time, we could put multiple statues that would come up with the fulfillment of the requirement. It could be multiple statues with a bench. That would actually be worked out. But we're talking about, I should have put bronze statues, plural, but.
Yeah, that's what
okay.
helped me out.
Apologies.
And then the transit area is shown on slide 8. Correct?
Yes.
That's the area where
No,
the
that's
statue
the, right there.
would
Yes.
sit.
Is that high visibility?
Go ahead.
Steve, finish? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Why is it that we're only, staff is only recommending the statue, one other combination of maybe some statues and the floor design? Because the floor design looks really great and it will improve the locations that you're showing on your slide. Why is it that only the statue and not the combination of the two?
The reason for that is as we move towards the completion of a replacement terminal building, the access that now is in place with these elevated walkways from the Ritzy to a location adjacent to the parking structures will not be needed. And so we did not see a reason to invest in the artwork. I don't think the city of Burbank would expect us to then abandon it as we open up the new replacement terminal.
And there are no other areas that we can use?
We think that the area that's being recommended is an ideal location because the rental car customers will use that location even with the replacement terminal building, as we continue to see more use and anticipate more use of trains and people coming over to get transportation over to the replacement terminal. That location provides an ongoing, an ongoing permanent area for the people that are here at the airport, either for the rental cars and or the train. So it makes sense to have it there. I think the bronze statues gives us an opportunity to really determine how we want to reflect the Hollywood Burbank Airport. We're coming back to you because we had a lot of discussions about artwork in the past. We want to make sure that it's a more involved process. We'll continue to come back to the commission and then ultimately give some direction to the artist that is selected by the commission to move forward and to create the statue or statues for the Ritzy.
So that the areas that are going to be used in the future, there is no floor area that you can do?
We can certainly take a look at that, and that can be part of the process
It's very
that
inviting,
we go through.
especially in a parking structure environment. I think the floor art would be very inviting and changes the entire ambience.
I think right now what we're saying is if that's the area which is being recommended by staff, then we can come back and then begin to determine whether or not it's a combination of statues and our floor artwork, but come back to the commission, let you see the direction that we're going, and to ensure that, we're doing what you would like to see done.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I find this very disappointing and surprising, I must say. We, after all this time, I mean, the building is not an architecturally inviting building. the panels were placed there intentionally, and funds have been expended as receivers for art. The intent was always to kind of dress up the building with public art on these panels. Unfortunately, the process we went through, and some of you weren't on the commission, we stubbed our toe in terms of the actual design that the artist brought forward after a lengthy process, selecting the artist, approving. We were all disappointed in the outcome, but I think to abandon the fundamental concept of the building with the art panels that would be visible not only to the rental car customers, but to people passing by and identify it as an authority building is really a misdirection, big mistake. My feeling is it's a big mistake. I think the fact that we weren't successful in terms of having an agreeable presentation of the representations of the three cities doesn't mean we should just sort of abandon these panels, and I don't know what you do with them, whether you'd remove them or what. There's no reference to that. But I don't think the fundamental concept should be abandoned. I think we should continue to pursue. We just need to find the right artist and the right art. And the benefit of that is that it provides art that would be available to all of the people passing by, as well as those using the structure. It would enhance what is a very utilitarian structure. And I think you're trying to find an easier path. I appreciate after all this time, not wanting to go through the same process again and get burned again, but I don't think the fundamental concept was unsound. I think that the execution was not acceptable, and we weren't engaged enough at an early enough time to influence the outcome, successful outcome. I mean, we've been through this. We've had failed processes twice in Pasadena in terms of public art. Once at the convention center, and once down at the power plant. This public art business is very difficult, and to have a bunch of elected officials, lay people agree on what constitutes appropriate art is not an easy task. So I'm not belittling the concept, but I think abandoning the concept and going to statues in a hidden area, what I view as basically a hidden area, is really a bad option. I don't support it.
Thank you. President Brown?
I'm very surprised at this. This is the first time I'm learning about this. The three cities were asked to give us ideas from Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena. And this is totally, it appears that you've totally just wasted that. All that time and input that the three cities gave you here to the committee died with the committee. And this is the first I'm learning that we're now going or want to go to something like this. And I don't, it was, I think, a lot of time and wasted by the commissioners themselves that came up with ideas. Separately for Glendale, separately for Burbank, separately for Pasadena. And now we're hearing this. And I'm very disappointed in this. I think it was a waste of time of our time. And the committee, I got phone calls from several people on the committee wanted to know what was going on. And then I got a phone call that said, and it wasn't from here. They've changed their minds and they're doing another thing. And this is the other thing. And I'm quite surprised about that. And I agree with Commissioner Turnick that I don't think this is something Burbank would like. And he's speaking on behalf of Pasadena. I don't know about Glen. Well, yes, I do. You made a comment about what you thought was wrong with it. So I think we have to be filled in to exactly what is going on here. Are the commissioners going to be involved in this, or is it going to be at the discretion of the three cities themselves that are going to be involved in this? I knew nothing about statues. I knew nothing about this. We were going to paint those things out there, and we were going to do some other stuff. But Okay, apparently, the commission looks like they're out of it.
Okay. Sir?
Mr. President, the commission is not out of it. You know, what we have indicated is that, in fact, we believe that there needs to be a little more input for us as we go forward. We certainly had some issues the last time that we came to the commission with the direction that had been given to the artist and the type of artwork that he did and how it really didn't lend itself to the panels that were on the Ritzy. If the commission feels strongly about maintaining the panels, then we can come back to the commission with some thoughts as we go forward. We want the commissioners to be a part of this. In fact, feel that it really is important that the commission is a part of this. What I think part of the problem is if you have three separate city organizations trying to come up with something that they like, how does that all come together? And I think that was part of what we were seeing during that first round. So we can come back with the idea of maintaining the panels as a way of trying to deal with the appearance of the Ritzy. And we will continue to work with the city of Burbank as well and get recommendations to the commission so that you can give us some additional direction as we go forward. And what we may want to see is how we use those panels in order to provide that public artwork.
Let's move on.
Oh, I had a comment, yeah. I just have one comment. I agree with Commissioner Tornick. I think when you're looking to place a bronze statue, I think location is absolutely the most important factor. And this location, when I looked at the picture, I don't even know where that is. And it's dark, there's no greenery, there's no green space. So I think if we're gonna be spending over $300,000, I think we need to get a lot of bang for our buck. And I think that is with these panels that, you know, thousands and thousands of people will see. And so I'm in agreement with what's been said today.
Okay. And furthermore, they were put up there for that sole reason.
Yeah.
So people driving down Hollywood Way could see them, to make the building more aesthetically.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Wait a minute. The check, I think, I mean, where we failed before in the process, just to make a point, because we were, those of us that were on the commission have a vivid memory of this. The selection of the artist proceeded, it was turned over to the artist. The artist selected images that were to be reflective of the three participating communities that all of us were stunned with and felt was a disconnect from what we needed to have to represent our communities. The failure was that he got turned loose, did his artistic process, came back with what was essentially a finished product, and all of us recoiled at the finished product. So it wasn't the location of the panels or even the concept of having visual representations of the three cities that was the problem. It was the execution by the artist and the fact that that the commission wasn't engaged in that process along the way. So I think what you're hearing is a consensus that it would be useful to have another rip at the panels and just be more mindful, and you are. That's why you came to us today in terms of choosing a direction. But I think that what we need to do is be mindful about before we get to the stage finished, that the commission gets re-engaged so that we're not surprised by the outcome. And I think there is an emerging consensus that we'd like to have another pass at the panels.
I agree.
Okay.
So this is not a formal action item. It's just information, so I think the information's been conveyed.
Okay. Okay, moving on then.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Parking revenue, item B.
Mr. Janos will be presenting the next two items, parking revenue statistics and transportation network statistics.
Okay, these are both together, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Hatanaka. Good morning, President Adams and Commissioners. Staff comes to you today to present authority parking revenue and activity for the period of June 2019. Across all of our lots, we saw an increase in parking revenue. Lot A saw an increase of approximately 9.7% or $31,000. Lot C showed double-digit growth, 19.1% or $25,000 compared to last June. Lot E had an increase of about 4.2%. Lot G up 2.5%. Valet showed an increase of 12.9% or $84,000. And the parking structure rose 7.6% or $29.7 thousand. So double-digit growths in a couple lots and all up across the board. Total for June 2019, our parking revenue was $1,895,483. That's an increase of $178,244 compared to June of 2018, representing a growth of 10.4%. The passenger activity level change grew 15.6% for June. And since June represents the end of the fiscal year, here are the totals when comparing fiscal year 2019 versus 18. Fiscal year 2019 total parking revenue, $20,986,614. That's an increase of $865,000 over last fiscal year, or 4.3% growth, while overall for the fiscal year, the passenger activity grew 9.3%.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
comment, so the uptick in the valet had a big influence on this, the
Absolutely.
revenue.
Yeah, Lot C and Valet definitely were the biggest contributors, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And
Moving on to the-
yes, Transportation Network Company
Okay,
activity.
you're the same guy. Okay, you got
Yes.
it.
Good morning
While
once
you're
again. Good morning. Here is June 2019 Transportation Network activity presented to the commission. Total revenue for our transportation network companies for the month of June was $386,341. There were 57,000 drop-offs and approximately 53,000 pickups. Typical Uber represents approximately 58% of the drop-offs and pickups, where Lyft represents approximately 42%. That's consistent, usually month over month. Moving on to the individual statistics for drop-offs or unloading, June saw 57,098 drop-offs. That's up 32% compared to this month last year. And for passenger loading or pickups, there was an increase of 39% to 53,285 pickups. In total, TNC activity levels increased 35.5%, and comparing that to parking activity at 10% and the passenger activity level change at 15.6%. And summarizing the financial years, for this current, for 2019, we had 1,159,955 total TNC trips compared to 883,000 in 2018. That's a difference of 276,000 trips, or 31.3%. Parking activity, once again, for the year was up 4.3%, and passenger activity for the year was up 9.3%.
So what revenue does that translate to?
That translates to, so for June.
No, for the year.
Oh, for the year, sure. So for 2019 fiscal year, the total amount was $3,591,526. Wow. 2018 was $2,650,000.
Yeah, so it's just times three.
Up until May we instituted
yeah,
a
then it
50 cent
went up.
increase. So there was so it's not quite apples to apples because we have a 50 cents differential for the last 3 months of the year.
So it's 30, I'm trying to do the math, it's 276,000 trips, so it's roughly over 700,000 additionally. And if we added that to the delta, I mean, it doesn't quite make up the difference between the passenger delta and the
Parking delta, yes.
Right. But it eats away at it. I mean, I'm trying to sort of understand the net impact financially. Ross has probably got it in his head, but we're still behind. We're not realizing the same revenue benefit, but it's not the same gap as the 4.3% to the 9.3%.
Or what we experienced when they first started.
It
where
winds
they-
up being like, maybe a 2% difference, not a 5% difference.
It's getting closer to that, yes.
Thank you.
Good question,
Mr.
Yeah, I've got two questions. One, the figures we've got for the parking, we're measuring parking in terms of how much revenue, but are we also looking at the number of cars that are being parked there?
Tickets,
And how does that
absolutely.
compare? Is it a pretty constant mix, so if we see it going up,
It's a pretty constant mix. For the month of June, tickets redeemed were up about 8.2%. So we're seeing an increase in tickets. Average
and a
price-
lower per ticket, apparently?
Average price per ticket was about the same. They were pretty flat. So yes, we are looking at tickets and average.
Oh, yeah, that way. Okay, I was just talking overall.
Oh yeah, that's overall. Yeah,
I'm saying
tickets redeemed.
the
are-
valet's is more expensive.
Yeah, okay. And Ontario apparently is going to lose Uber because they raised the drop-off.
Yes, Ontario Airport increased their trip fee, and Uber decided to leave. Yes, Ontario Airport. They're not operating there at the moment.
Now, we kicked it up, was 3.5 or 4?
We are at $3.50
We're
per trip.
$3.50, and they
We
went to
increased that
4.
May 1st. Yeah, Ontario's at $4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes. Oh, quick question. Can you tell us what's the number of cars parked in our structures? Because we have the drop-off and, pick-up and drop-off for
I have.
TNCs, but
I don't have
for our
occupancy
structures,
levels for the structure, but
Total number of cars, including valet.
yeah, I don't have that with me at the time, but I can
For
come
the
and get.
next report, I think that would be
Absolutely.
very helpful to compare the two.
Thank-
I will get that next time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr.
Moving on to D, airline schedule passenger analysis.
Ms. Sugars will be making the presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. In the interest of time, I know that you all received this information in your packet previously. It's also available on the website. Generally, in changes to the airline schedule resulted in a decrease of 40 flight operations a week, and the schedule changes also result in an increase of more than 1,300 weekly seats. Overall, the numbers for Hollywood Burbank Airport in June are in line with what many airports across the country are experiencing, as well as economists predicted with the busy summer travel season. Numbers are up 15.6% for the month of June. Here's a breakdown of the different respective airline numbers. Again, this information is available in your packet. Alaska numbers are up 12%. American Airlines up 130%. Again, that was compared to last year when we did not have the DFW schedule, so that is taken into consideration here. Delta Airlines numbers are up 24.5%. JetBlue numbers are also up with the addition of that New York flight compared to last year, different from last year. Southwest Airlines numbers are up. And Spirit Airline, which is a new entry to the airport, service started June 20th, so that's why you have that one dot there. United Airlines numbers are down due to some equipment changes. Here's the load factor, the number of seats available, and the number that were made available, and the passengers that were able to fill those seats. Alaska, American, Delta, and JetBlue filled most of the seats that they made available. Southwest was at 70%, United about 80%, and Spirit at 38%, but again, they just started service in June. So overall load factors compared from June to this year compared to last, slightly down from last year's numbers. Regionally, airports performance, LAX is up slightly. Ontario is up just over 9.5%. Long Beach is down, primarily due to JetBlue pulling back on some of their service. They had to give up some of their gate slots. And numbers are slightly down at Orange County. Any questions?
Okay, question?
Page 5 indicates that we have 40 less flights per week. Am I reading this correctly? So
That's the published schedule that the airlines have provided starting September.
So it's 120 less flights a month?
That is correct.
I mean,
160 flights.
160 flights. So the notion that was made today that we have more flights
Well,
How does that compare?
the airlines schedule their flights and they're based on future demand. And as they fall off the summer travel demand, they go to the fall demand, there's a reduction in demand for air travel, and so they reduce their capacity accordingly. And then you'll see it kick up again when the holidays come back up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Right, let's see. On slide 6, I guess we had a total 57,000 increase in revenue passengers. That's total for all our carriers. But, you know, I looked at the Southwest increase, and it was about 19,000 out of the 57. It just seemed odd to me that Southwest, which is over 70% of the passengers, I think, that are flying out of here, was only contributing about a 40% to the total increase that we had. So it's all the other airlines that are kicking up and increasing more than Southwest, is that
Well, your
correct?
new services from JetBlue to Boston to New York with the second flight, your double dailies from DFW, all of those had a tremendous impact because they're running at very high load factors. So yes, the new services that have been operating here have contributed more than what some of the increases that Southwest has had.
Yeah, and year over year, it's been much more on those other airlines than Southwest.
Well, because we didn't have those flights until
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir?
I just wonder if we could get a cumulative report for the future written reports of sort of similar to like page 80 on the agenda, where you see one carrier's total operations. And then, because when we get to the cumulative, we have revenue and we have total operations, but we don't have weekly. And it would also be helpful, if I'm asking too much, don't hesitate to say, but
No, we actually have the information, just let us know what you need.
that's what I would
Yeah.
think. So it's basically just a summary table of the table that appears on page 80 for all the carriers.
Sure.
And then, you know, we're so painstaking about takeoffs and arrivals, and then about Monday through Friday and weekend. If there was a way to break the information down that way, too, that would be very helpful. So if someone were to ask me as a commissioner, how many takeoffs do you have each weekend? How many takeoffs each week? You follow me?
Sure.
I know you have the data.
We have the data.
Just a question. if you could
It'll take
present.
some time to put that all together. I'm assuming you want this on an annual, weekly basis or annual, because it's impacted by variation of season.
Let's say however you're preparing this material.
This is
just
based
each
on,
time.
yeah, this is based on, so you want to see that, you
Same
want to see.
thing, just cumulatively.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving on, we're down to the, do we still have a closed session?
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, that's adjourned for a closed session. Closed session. Is there anything else we need to discuss? In that case, this time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. We have a finance committee. We're going to do that.